Let's talk about it. EVO Japan 2020, right? They had the announcement go down in EVO 2019. Very low key, right? It felt like nobody really grabbed the mic and talked about it. It's kind of just like released on Twitter, right? But nonetheless, pretty big announcement, and I'll show you why. First things first, check this out. This is the announcement that they made. Now, number one thing here is it says January, back to January, right? January 24th, 26th. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3. But the big thing is here. Look there. Makuhari Messe. Now, for most of you guys at home, you've never been to Japan before. You have no idea what that means. I'll tell you what it means. When you think about EVO Japan 2018, it was split between an event space in Ikebukuro and the finals in GDX Theater in Akihabara, right? So you had split venue. It moved to Fukuoka, moved away from Tokyo, which normally I would say is hype as fuck. That's pretty cool. Only problem, apparently there was a K-pop concert that exact same weekend, and it didn't have the hotels and accommodation space to be prepared for having like two massive events the exact same weekend like that. Now back to the point, what is that? Why should you care? Makuhari Messe is one of the big event spaces in not just Tokyo but Japan, period. For example, the old SBOs were held here, and here I'll show you where. So these are all halls here. There's, I think, 8 in total. This is where Tokyo Game Show is held. This is where the former SBO series was held. So you remember when I told you EVO Japan 2018, they had the venue split. The first 2 days were held in a venue in Ikebukuro, and then the last day was held in UDX Theater in Akihabara, right? I wonder if they would plan on doing the 2 days at the halls here, and then third day do it here, is what I'm thinking. There's high potential for this to be a much better and much bigger showcase stage. A lot more space, could be a lot more comfortable, and it's back in Tokyo too, right? So like that's a 50-50 for me. The most fun part about Japan is going to other places, seeing the cool stuff. Tokyo isn't Japan, Tokyo's Tokyo. So that's why I kind of like actually going to Fukuoka. But on the other side of that, if you're running a really big event like that, it's probably difficult to swing because just like there's not enough space, there's not enough accommodation for the scale and event size that you want to put on, right? A pretty big announcement considering last year was kind of a mess. The other big announcement here was something that happened last year was they had a staggered event announcement for what games would be the main titles at EVO Japan, right? Unfortunately, it looks like they're kind of going to do the same pattern this year. You know, they know that some of these things are issues, so I have to imagine if they're still doing it, then there's something holding them back, or that a hand is forced somewhere to be doing, still doing it like this. Let's take a look anyway. So first up, Soul Calibur. No big surprise here, right? Pretty good showing at EVO Japan last year. I'd say maybe one of the more pleasant surprises in terms of tournament quality in the top 8 for sure last year. Tekken 7, I mean, you already know what it is, man. Nobody had any doubts at this point. Been pretty consistent. Still hype, not really much to add there. And then you have this game. Sorry. My bad. Wait, where is it? That's my fault. I wasn't trying. That was unintentional. I'm sorry. BB Tag. Let's fucking go. So BB Tag is in kind of a weird position, and I'll tell you why. Although it's had really good success, I think, in North America, right? Especially last year, right? Really big numbers showing. And hell, even this year, right? It was the lowest game. Dude, if you would have told me in January or February that A, somebody would have brought the measles to EVO, or B, that 660 people would have signed up and entered BB Tag, if you would have told me you would have found 600 people that cared about BB Tag in January this year, I would have called you a fucking liar, man. But hey, it worked out. They raised the bar. You gotta put respect in the name. They had the lowest event this year. Had more events than like the second or third lowest last year. I think it had more than Guilty Gear the previous year, right? Gotta put respect on it. So check this out. Really big initial release year. That's not that strange, right? We know that games on their release year will have a boom in terms of entries, players. It's usually in that second year, that third year, that's you start to see the real thing kind of shape up. They're still producing content for this game, and just because of the way the game naturally is too, you have to imagine it was higher end profit margins for them just because of the amount of reused assets and reused sprites. It's a lot of assets being lifted in the game, right? They're still creating content for it. What does that mean? it behooves them to push the game. They want to push the game. You should have no doubts of this. It's very. I'm not saying anything controversial. It's just literally, it's just quite obvious. They have not updated BlazBlue Central Fiction in a while. They have not updated Guilty Gear in a while. And although they have a new version on the way, right? You have to remember, if they haven't been producing stuff for it like that, its selling point is weaker, right? They want to push what they're still making stuff for. This is the game that they're putting on the front lines right now. These 3 games are locked. Of course, it's EVO Japan, right? We still haven't seen the Street Fighter V announcement, but in my opinion, this is what you can almost put down as soft locks. They haven't been announced yet, but Street Fighter V, I expect to be there, right? I think just about everyone does. Same shit. I mean, it's just obvious, right? I think these 5 are locks. You can soft lock at minimum. Which brings me to the next section of this. Last year, no DBFZ, no Smash Brothers. This year, my question is, are they going to be in the lineup this year? These are 2, I'd say, even in Japan, right? Still reasonably popular for sure. Smash Bros. Obviously is just crushing it, dude. The issue is, this same weekend is Genesis. So, I'm looking at Smash Brothers, and I'm like, man, even if it is in, I mean, the player base is going to be split, right? Can't imagine that it appeals to most of the ones in Japan. They'll still go to this one, I would think. But that would definitely hurt the international comp and an international appeal for the game, too. They would have pretty much be split between that decision. Although that's before we even get to that level, the big thing is working with Nintendo in Japan, right? Nintendo is notorious for just being really, really difficult to work with. It's a big question mark if Nintendo is ready to support it in that fashion on a really big stage like this in Japan. It's hard enough, certainly in North America, where maybe they're a little bit more progressive in that office. But in Japan, kind of a different story. We'll see, though. But Dragon Ball, like I said, man, it still can probably do really decent numbers. You know, last year, it felt like a lot of communities were kind of waiting, waiting till the last minute, like, man, is it going to get in? Is it going to not? It didn't work out in the end, and I guess we'll just see what happens. But Dragon Ball's probably in a better position than Smash, in my opinion, but they're both, man, just historically really difficult to work with, so it's a toss-up. That brings me to the wild cards. The wild cards are games that I think would either A, be really cool to have at EVO Japan, or just B, have had consistency in terms of numbers or a certain competitive quota, I guess. First one, I think it would be really cool, and like I said, I have no idea if this is even possible, but Eunice. And the reason why is because, you have to understand, this past EVO for this game is the biggest Under Night In-Birth tournament of all time. It's the biggest ever. There are not that many tournaments and events for this game in Japan, to be honest with you. Not big ones. Certainly not ones of this scale. It would be interesting to me to see how the JP community responds to a tournament like EVO on their home turf. Of course, this depends a lot, I think, on French Red, and maybe even Arc, I guess, since they published the game, right? I think it'd be really cool to have the game there. I think it deserves it. And I think it'd be pretty cool just because I'd say some of their bigger, like their national tournament every year is a team event, right? But a singles open bracket game tournament like that, I could definitely see this game getting in, especially just off the momentum that it had last year, and especially if the update somehow drops before this, I think it would have a pretty good shot. But the other game that I kind of have a question mark about is this one. And the reason why is because it's outdated, it's an old version now, they have a new one on the way, but I'm thinking, just because of entry numbers and reception, there's a chance that they could put it there, and you'll probably still net some uniques, right? If it comes down to the 2 of these, and they can only pick one, I think it would probably have, I would rather have Eunice there personally. But even if they can run both, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's only 8 games if you don't count the Smash Brothers. They could do it probably, just because of the way Makuhari Messe is set up. It's so big. It wouldn't be strange. But we'll see. So this is a table of EVO Japan entrants from 2018 to 2019. What you'll notice right off the bat, obviously last year, because of the change to Fukuoka and also because of the way that the titles were announced, pretty big overall decrease. So now break it down further and look by game. KOF went from 542 to 185. Blaze Blue, now this is BBCF, mind you. This is BB Tag in 2019. We'll come back to this, that's important. Caliber in its debut, 291, not bad. Guilty, 1187 2018, 311 2019. We'll come back to this. Tekken, 1202, 507. Street Fighter, 22 to 10. This game was announced super late. Super late, like two months before the tournament. So by then you had a lot of people that were already booked and already planning to go, and some of the people that wanted to go, right, they couldn't get hotel rooms. They couldn't find the means to go at that point. Yet despite that, look at the numbers. Still did more than quite a few other games. KOF, kind of a similar position, right? Big drop off from 185, which is one reason why KOF to me, I don't think has a very good chance this year. I think SNK wants to focus on Sam's show. That's going to be the title that they push if they're forced to shoot. You know, let's say if they had to choose between the two. That said, I expect KOF to be there at least in side tournament capacity, and it'll probably always be. I mean, it usually is really hype, right? The cool thing about it last year was the storyline of, you know, you had M-Dash, but you had the new gen, right? Lagia, right? That's pretty hype. You don't have too many young bloods that do super well in KOF like that. Blaze Blue. Now look at this. And this is I'm going to make a point on this. 595 for BBCF, 216 for BB Tag. Think about this. Why do you think BB Tag, in its first EVO Japan, right? The game's only been out like a year at this point, would perform this poorly? And if I'm not mistaken, they announced this game first. Ding, 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 ding. So check this out. I brought these as well. This is Arc Revo 2018. Total entrance for Guilty Gear, 183. Now, mind you, this event had some problems of its own, which resulted in some low numbers overall. But focus on focus on the trend here, right? This is Blaze Blue Central Fiction at that same event, 129. This is BB Tag at that same event, 120. So my question to you is, why would a game in its initial release year be underperforming like that in Japan compared to games that are, you know, its seniors, haven't been updated in 2 years? What's up with that? I'll tell you why. Somebody said it earlier. Most of these guys are out here trying to play in arcades, right? That's still the scene for a lot of those games. BB Tag didn't have its arcade version, I think, until last year, and even then it released on Nesca 2. If you're not familiar, Nesca 2, pretty shitty overall. A lot of people don't like to play on it, pretty laggy. It depends on the cabinet, but it's not very popular. And this game was out on console for a while before it got its arcade version. It's not that popular of a game. The other thing is, if you think about it, very few of them are BB Tag exclusive players. This is one of those games with a lot of crossover, right? In particular between a lot of the Arc System Works and fighting game scenes, and maybe like some Sam shows. You know, it's a little mix, right? Despite that, it's not pulling that many people here, actually. It's not that popular. The other issue is, I mean, quite frankly, there just aren't that many offline event spaces to really run events for it and cultivate a community around it here, right? You know, Gamma was running, he had button mashers where he would run stuff for it. They would occasionally have stuff for it at Studio Sky on Sundays, or Akiba Esports Square even. But because Arc doesn't really partner and run like consistent weeklies like that in any of the offline gathering spots, this game didn't really have too many places where people could rally around and play it and get into it like that. They kind of just split off into groups and play with each other on netplay or at, you know, if you're really close to some of the people here, at people's homes. That's one reason why I think the game kind of underperforms in Japan. Obviously, it's had a really good year last year at EVO. Really impressive numbers too. That was the boom year. That's always going to happen. This year, you saw a big downturn. What that says about the game, or like the trajectory, or like how they touch it, how they balance it, I have no idea. But that's kind of where it is. Blaze Blue Tag has already been announced. Soul Calibur has already been announced. Tekken has already been announced. Those are locks. I expect Tekken to produce pretty high numbers this time around. BB Tag, I'm not sure what to expect, you know? Considering last year was such a big downturn. Every game was a downturn last year anyway. You can't even look at that. But I'm not confident that it will produce the kind of numbers that maybe Arc would like it to, or maybe other people would like it to. So for that reason, I think there might be a really good chance that Under Night or Guilty Gear could get in there, could get another spot. Yeah, so they're coming out with a new update for BB Tag. Hopefully that rejuvenates some interest and gets some numbers back up. You have to be looking for it to try to deliver on some level there, right? But anyway, that's just the stuff that's swirling around in my head. If you agree, disagree, if you got something to say, let me know in the comments below.